You brought up something interesting there. This concept of commoditized content. It is not adding value. It's kind of duplicating information that's across the web just so you can have a position or a page that has a potential to rank. What do you say to people that are using generative AI to create content that by nature is commoditized because it is aggregating information that's already out in the web? Is that a strategy that you think is viable, or is it something that's going to get punished as you think about the future of search?
So I'll give you two answers. I'll give you, I think, the simple answer, and I'll give you the more complex answer. I think the simple answer is that Google's confused. They don't really know what is good and what is not good. And they've even said that in the antitrust case where the Department of Justice subpoenaed them, their internal communications, and their documents literally say, we don't know, we just fake it. And we use user engagement to tell us whether something should be rank one or rank two. And so Google actually doesn't know. All right, so the simple answer is that Google doesn't know, and that is why brands dominate. Because if Google doesn't know and Nike puts out a piece of content, Nike's piece of content is going to be more trusted, more engaged with, and better because it's Nike and not Marathon Map. Unfortunately, that's just like kind of how it works. So that's like the simple answer. The more complex answer, I think, has to deal with this emerging concept within the field of search, which what we're calling it is information gain. And information gain refers to this idea that topics are a messy web of related concepts. And so if we're talking about, say, Nike as a brand, we'd say that Nike is closely associated with athletics, shoes, fitness, Michael Jordan. And these are all concepts that belong to the topic of Nike. Information gain refers to the idea that as Nike starts to dabble with opening up fitness studios or getting more into the gamification of exercise and athleisure, that these as related topics are different directions that Nike is growing into or evolving. So the going hypothesis in the deep search community is that how do you create content that is additive to how a topic is evolving? Because only humans would really be able to know that within the context of talking about Nike, that they are opening studio classes. They are getting into more athleisure and these different things. And language models are going to struggle because the training data associated with Nike in those particular areas is very weak. So the going thought then is that Google is really looking for content that is surfacing information gain within topical evolutional spots that are likely to only be done with subject matter expertise and human input, and language models are going to struggle there. So they're looking then at the differences between topic content that matches what the known relationships of words are, and then kind of slicing it and saying, okay, but Marathon Matt is including that Nike is talking about athleisure and studio classes. Wow, nobody else is, not nobody else, but it's complicated. But basically, nobody else that can qualify to talk about it is talking about it. So that looks interesting. And let's put that at position one or two.
So if you're Marathon Matt, what do you do?
What do you do? Yeah. And this is where the Google propaganda says you use your subject matter expertise to talk about firsthand experiences and perspectives that users are going to care about. And you are authentic and credible, and you put your photos of everything on your site because that makes what you're saying way more credible. And if we're thinking about that statement I made earlier, where Google propaganda is many years ahead of Google execution, I think what Google is then saying is that by doing that, you're going to be producing content that adds to the topic in a meaningful way that nobody else is really doing. And that sounds great. But in actuality, the problem is that it's a sort of self-cannibalizing ecosystem, because as you do that and you, as Marathon That, start to rank up for the topics you're writing about because you're contributing meaningful information, guess what happens? Your competition or your brands who want to own those topics look at what you've done and they say, oh, okay, well, Marathon Matt is talking about the biggest mistakes he made while training for his ultra marathon. And they say to their content team, yeah, that looks good. Just do that. And then they do. And then Nike comes out with 12 mistakes that we made while training for our ultra marathon. And then now all of a sudden, Marathon Matt's back down on the search engine results page because, well, Nike says it and Marathon Matt is less authoritative, less brand worthy. So they get pushed back down. And so it's this very strange world where small publishers do unique and interesting things because they have to punch above their weight. And then brands see it and they say, oh, that looks good. And then they kind of just replicate it. And then the small publishers get punished because they're not as big of a brand, which is why then Google keeps saying, like, focus on the brand, be a brand. Brand is everything. And I mean, that's great if you're a brand. And I mean, they're basically trying to encourage small publishers to all become brands, and some do, the Points Guy, so on and so forth. But most don't. And it's kind of just a troubling world for small publishers.